Pakistan cricket at its best. 1 minute down, next minute up.
Thanks very much, everybody, for joining me once again. Saj Sadiq here, bringing you another exclusive interview. An interview with difference. We always try to, vary the range of interviews we do with former players and current players. But the gentleman who I'm interviewing today, I've known for a very long time. He does a fantastic job at Sky Sports. And as I say, it's an interview with a difference because he's not a player, he's not an ex-player. He was recently awarded the MBE, which is thoroughly deserved. He's the man behind cricket and NFL at Sky Sports. His title is the Director of Cricket and NFL at Sky Sports, the one and only Bryan Henderson. Hendo, thanks very much for your time. Hope you're well.
That's a big build-up. I feel very undeserving of the one and only. Hi, how you doing, Saj? Nice to see you.
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. I think it's all thoroughly deserved based on, the feedback I get, certainly from the coverage that Sky do. I think first and foremost, congratulations on the MBE. It must be a fantastic honour.
Thank you. It is, of course, it's an honor. It does sit a little bit uncomfortably because it is sort of, I guess, individual recognition for, I think, as you've just pointed out, right, team coverage and team success. I'm very lucky to be in the role that I am. I'm very lucky to, I guess, work with a fantastic team of people on both those sports. Cricket is the bigger challenge out of the two because we're host broadcaster. And, often, like at the Oval a few weeks ago for that wonderful test match against India, we'll have had, well over 100 people working directly on the game, let alone all the people back at Sky that do much to support. So look, it is individual recognition. It is a bit embarrassing for me, but I think people here see it as recognition for the team, recognition for Sky Sports and for Sky. But, I haven't gone to receive it yet. That'll be a nice day out for the family. And it's made my mum and dad very proud. So anytime you can do that, hasn't happened too often in my 50 odd years. But yeah, I'm really grateful and humbled. And I'm also really pleased that Sanjay Patel, a good mate of mine, was also recognized for his work, services to cricket. And I think it was really around our work on the 100, which I'm sure we'll come on to in the next 20 minutes or so. But I'm really pleased he was recognized as well. He's one of the good guys, very resilient leader at ECB at the time. He's now at Yorkshire, of course. He's a good guy doing good things.
Did you play cricket yourself, Hendo, or is it just a role that you
I played a version of it. I've got a great photo somewhere of me about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old with a cricket bat kind of bigger than me. And it's actually at a place called Stenhouse Muir, like a really small ground. Obviously in Scotland, I don't remember it. It was my aunt's husband at the time played cricket, right? And obviously that was the connection. I don't remember it, but there's a picture of me wandering around with this great big cricket bat. And for some reason, the game stuck with me. My dad liked it, but didn't really play it or anything. So it was a family connection. And I just always, for some reason, loved hitting a ball and bowling a ball. And I guess, it was heavily involved on television at the time. I guess there's a slight irony that I'm leading coverage behind the paywall and I was myself inspired, by, Ian Botham, I guess, was my hero. Well, he was my hero, right? Back in the 80s when I was a lad growing up. And that, back then there was only 3 channels. Cricket was on all day. And, I used to make my poor sister come out and bowl at me in the garden. And I just loved the sport. It's just one of those things. I don't remember, just loved it. I've always loved it. And I remember like being at school and literally trembling with excitement at the prospect of the season starting or a game happening. I remember playing a game of golf one day and I just couldn't concentrate because I was thinking about, opening the batting the next day from a school. And it's just one of those things, right? I just absolutely adored the sport. And, as you know, the more you learn about cricket, the more you enjoy it. And, it's changed beyond all recognition, since those days a long time ago. But I think, the sport beats itself up and gives itself a hard time when actually there's, everybody's invited. There's a format of the sport to suit every possible kind of taste. And I absolutely love it. But to answer your point, I played club cricket. I played a little bit of kind of representative stuff for Scotland under 15s, that sort of stuff. But I remember playing a game, I think it was for Scotland under 15s against Northamptonshire, and Mal Lloyd was playing for Northants, right? Who went on to have a decent kind of pro career. And even then, he was a different class to any of us. And I remember thinking, I'm not good enough here. And then by the time you get to sort of under 19s, the gulf between, is even greater, between England and, I don't know what's facilities or coaching or whatever. So I knew I was never good enough to play professionally. I played club cricket with very mixed success, but I loved it.
You quite rightly mentioned your team when I spoke about the MBE, Hendo. And
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a fantastic team of people, not just the commentators, but as you said, all the people working behind the scenes. What is your team ethos?
Gosh, that is a good question. I think it's pretty simple, right? It's basically tell the story and then make it look as pretty as possible, right? So, like, I'm an editorial person really, rather than a coverage person. Tell the story first and foremost, then make it look as amazing as you can, right? With polish and gizmos and tech and whatever. But ultimately, the story is the story, whatever you're doing, right? You're a journalist, right? The story is the story, right? Whether that's a great spell or massive breaking news or an injury or whatever, the story is the story. And then I guess I'd expand on that a little bit, right? And that, that's, I guess, focused towards your linear coverage is what I'm thinking about. But you're then telling that story on as many different platforms as you can. And and that story is told differently on Instagram as it is on TikTok, as it is on Sky Sports Cricket, right? But the story's still the story. You're just telling it in different ways, and you're telling it as as beautifully as you can. And then I guess further to that, it would be with a kind of an eye on inclusivity, right? Whereby generally you're trying to tell that story to your customers, and you want your team and your customers, very simply, I think, to reflect the world that you live in, right? The people that you're broadcasting to, the people that you want to broadcast to. And yeah, but the ethos, I guess, is tell the story and make it look pretty.
You must have many career highlights, Hendo, and if you could just go through some of those.
Yeah, I mean, I've been so fortunate to have done so many things through this wonderful sport, traveled the world. I've been to, the most amazing cricket grounds. I mean, like if you'd said to me when I was a young lad joining Sky, in 1998 that I would be doing broadcasts from Cape Town and Barbados and the MCG and Pakistan and and India and Bangladesh and all these amazing, wonderful places I've been lucky to visit. That, I guess, is the career highlight, the ability to have seen the sport that I adore in all these different places, working with and meeting so many wonderful people. Whether it's, somebody, operating a camera in Dhaka to meeting, all my childhood heroes that I've kind of pretty much done. I guess, kind of, being a sort of a supporter of English cricket, especially, the Ashes wins that didn't come very often. I remember 1987 was it, but then it was a very, very lean spell all the way through to sort of 2005. And then I joined this cricket department the year after. And so 2009, 2010, 11, obviously in Australia, 2013 in England, 2015 in England. So those Ashes wins are really special. I guess the first complete Ashes series that I produced personally was at home, was 2015. So I remember that kind of winning. I think it was it Mark Wood wicket at Trent Bridge, which was was really special. I was really proud of the coverage. Broadies 8 for 15 was at Trent Bridge. Was just an incredible morning. The first Ashes series I produced was in Australia. We got hammered 5-0, but it was the trip of an absolute lifetime. So, World Cup wins. I think England winning the World Cup in 2019 was really special. I'll never, ever forget it. Sitting, and we had our own little production room next to ICC's kind of, commentary box, the famous commentary, Ian Smith and Nasser. We were in the room next door, and I can still see it as that ball was pushed out and Jason Roy hurling it in, and Butler. It was at the pavilion end, so like we couldn't really sort of see, and everybody's going mad, and it was just an incredible. We were hugging each other, right? And I was hugging Andrew Strauss, who had done so much, and was working for us that day. Brendan McCullum was devastated, working for us that day, and it was just mayhem. At the end of actually what in many ways been a pretty boring day, but the last 3 hours, last 2 or 3 hours were just incredible. So that was brilliant. England women have won World Cups. 2017 again at Lords was really special. So those are moments that really stick to mind. There's been other sort of challenges. Leading the team through the difficult COVID years was difficult. There was the infamous Michael Holding, Ebony Rainford Brent content that came out of the terrible events around George Floyd. Then there was the combination of those two. I think probably the week that I'm most proud of from a producing point of view was actually the last test match I ever produced. It was at Southampton, the first test of that series against West Indies, where it was a combination of COVID, Black Lives Matter, and the airing of that, Mikey, who I know you're close with, and Ebony, and the video that had, I'll never do anything in my career. We will never do anything, I don't think, that will have as much impact as that did. And whilst the week will be remembered for that, it was also months and months of planning on, how we were going to disinfect microphones and socially distance this and plastic that and routes to eat and, all that, what audio we were going to do, what cameras we were going to put in. I remember I was in the comm box and, we had this kind of audio mix of fake noise that I never thought would be the right thing to do, but we'd seen a couple of other sports and actually fake crowd noise was important. Otherwise it was kind of nothing and dead. But then when I walked outside for a break at one point during the game, and it was just weird. It was like being back at Hampstead Cricket Club, right? Literally nobody there. And there's a test match going on right out in the middle. And you could hear sort of Stokesy shouting, and it was just it was really surreal. So that was it was an odd time, but I guess quite proud of the content we did, the watch-alongs, all that sort of stuff, that all these mad ideas that that we were forced into as we were trying to create value for people stuck at home in terrible times. So that would be a big thing. A couple of other things quite briefly, I guess. I'm proud of how we handled our first test match after the tragic passing of Shane Warne. I remember randomly being in the shower one morning thinking, what are we going to do? What can we do? And then it just sort of came to me, like maybe we could ask MCC and ECB if we could pause the match after 23 overs and have a kind of a moment's applause. And, and that managed to happen. So I remember being, I was quite close to Shane. I was very close to Shane. And, we still miss him dearly. But that moment, I remember looking out as the whole of Lords is kind of clapping and remembering that wonderful, great entertainer, right? The guy that played cricket in an unbelievable way, probably, one of the greatest cricketer I've known or seen. And the whole week that week was kind of remembering Shane Warne. We renamed the commentary box after him. I think, I don't know his family particularly well, but I think they were kind of quite touched by the effort that we'd put in. And I know that, Shane will be looking down and, good on you, Hendo. But, we miss him desperately. And then I guess laterally, the 100, I mentioned it earlier. Look, I'm more than aware it's not everybody's cup of tea. It's not for everybody. It's caused, quite a lot of rancor and division. But if you just forget all that for a moment, as I've said, I've been really lucky to go to a lot of cricket grounds around the world, right? And even now, even last week, I'm walking around the Oval in Lords, and I'm literally seeing thousands and thousands of kids everywhere. And look, I know that's not necessarily because 100 balls. It's the way that it's marketed. It's the fact that it's on school holidays. It's the fact that tickets are cheap. But a combination of all those things is a really good thing. Seeing thousands and thousands and thousands of kids at a sold-out domestic cricket match in England makes me very proud of the small role that I've played in helping kind of create that. I respect that people have got other views. That's fine. They're welcome to them. But I'm proud of that. And, you know, if I in some small way or the team have kind of inspired more boys and girls somewhere somehow to pick up a bat and a ball, like Ian Botham did on BBC One to me back in 1981 or whenever it was, then that's great.
Tell us about some of the great characters and commentators that you've worked with, Hendo. I mean, you could probably go on for hours regarding some of the characters, but just
I could go on
briefly a
for
few of
hours.
them.
Sure. I mean, like, I'd like to firstly pay tribute to Nasser, Hussain, and Mike Atherton, right? They are the stalwarts of Sky Sports. Look, they are elite broadcasters, and they have, you know, I've worked with them now for 20 years. I mean, it's amazing how fast those 2 decades go. They are the elite of the elite. I actually don't quite think they get the credit they deserve for the kind of the broad range of broadcasting that they do. Lead commentary, color commentary, punditry, analysis, demonstrations, interviews, documentaries, you know, et cetera, as all-round broadcasters, right? I can't think of anybody elsewhere in world sport that kind of ticks all those boxes, right? They are elite of the elite. Don't always agree with them, but you know, they would be the first to say that they are left to, you know, at no point do we ever tell them what to say or put pressure on them. Their own opinion is their own opinion. You know, they were brought up on red ball cricket and county cricket, and they are huge supporters of that, and I respect that. But they've been brilliant to work with. They're good people, great broadcasters, and they've been the cornerstone of Sky's coverage for a very long period of time, and probably the most, you know, if we are perceived to have any sort of success, then, you know, a lot of it is down to those two good people. I mean, you know, there are millions. It's not millions. There are loads of people that I've worked with. You know, Bumble deserves a huge mention. That just unique ability to he just got the balance right between, you know, what I call kind of shade and light, right? When the cricket was drifting, it was just he just recognized that moment they needed to entertain. We are in the entertainment business. The whole point about sport and the coverage of sport is to make people's lives better, to take them away from their, you know, their own problems, their own difficulties that people are facing. And Bumble just recognized that better than anyone. And a genius behind the microphone and just a wonderful, wonderful guy. You know, like, you know, where does it end? I mean, Shane, obviously, you know, I've spoken about Mikey, spoken about a little bit, that wonderful voice. Just been really lucky to work with some great broadcasters and great humans. Ian Ward would be another one, you know, that I'm particularly close to. You know, I cut my teeth on county cricket, you know, in the first kind of half of my career in Sky Sports, and much of that was, you know, driving around the country, doing county games, and Ian Ward would be presenting them, and we struck up a close relationship. And again, I don't think he gets the credit for the elite broadcaster, presenter that he is. You know, he's the best in the world in my view, and, you know, but anyway, maybe he does get the credit. But he again, a wonderful guy that I'm close to. So I'm, you know, really lucky. Loads of characters, loads of brilliant people from around the world. And I think the other thing is that, you know, more women than ever, right? And, you know, I'm a huge passionate supporter of women's cricket, women in cricket, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. And so it's just great to see women commentators develop. I remember when we actually put Isha Guha on. I think I was doing a game at One Day International at the Oval, and this was, I don't know, maybe around 2017, and there was a bit of an outcry at the time. You know, what's all this nonsense? You know, women on, you know, Sky Cricket, it's a disgrace. I remember getting messages, and you know, now it's normalized, and it's not as normalized as it should be. And look, it's a journey. It takes time, right? You know, like Nasser and Athers, it took them time to become elite broadcasters. It's a very, very difficult art. It's a minimum 5-year journey to become an elite commentator, and it takes people time. And you know, in this modern digital world, people get judged very quickly. But yeah, it's loads of characters, loads of great people, but really proud and pleased to see more women involved.
Tell us about your trips to Pakistan, Hendo. They must have been interesting experiences.
Yeah, well, obviously Pakistan was unfortunately, you know, no go for pretty much all of my you know, 20 odd years until relatively recently. I think England toured there just before the 2005 Ashes, I think. I can't remember. Oh, Collingwood doing, I can't remember. But I remember there was a tour there, and then obviously there was there was some sad incidents um with the Sri Lanka, the Sri Lanka team, and England didn't travel there for a long time. And then they did return, was it maybe 3 years ago, something like that? And I remember going out there for the first time in my life. I'd been to the subcontinent many times, been to India, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh many times, never been to Pakistan. I spent one of the best weeks of my life in Islamabad. Watched a quite incredible test match. You might not remember it as fondly as I do. England scored 500 or something in 75 overs on the first day. Bazball absolutely blasting it everywhere. And then kind of, aggressive captaincy from Ben Stokes, eventually leading to, I think it was Jack Leach, wasn't it? LB getting a wicket on, late on the final day. Just the best of Bazball. An amazing, careful what I say a little bit here. I don't know what my expectations were going into it, right? There was a lot of security. There was a lot of, worried about this, worried about that. And I found it to be the most welcoming, wonderful, delightful place. I'd love to go back. I'm sad that I've only ever been once. The people were amazing. The food was amazing. I remember we went to a sushi restaurant. I think Uruj took us out, and we went to a sushi restaurant in Rawalpindi, and you could have been in Manhattan, right? And you have these kind of preconceptions about what it might be like, I guess based a little bit on travel elsewhere. And it was, I don't know, I just had the best week, the best people. It was an amazing test match. It was greener than I thought it was going to be. It was quieter than I thought it was going to be. I know, Islamabad isn't as busy as some of the other cities, but I really, really, really enjoyed it. And I'm just so pleased that there's cricket there and people are back touring, and cricket needs a strong Pakistan, right? I know you follow the fortunes of the team closer than I do, but it's just a brilliant, brilliant place. And I haven't heard anybody speak any ill of the country that's been fortunate enough to have been there.
Tell us about the challenges that you face in your role, Endo, because I know I always try and pop into the commentary box just to say hello, and once or twice I've been in and you've looked pretty stressed.
I think that says more about me than the challenges of broadcasting. Yeah, look, I don't really produce anymore. I wish that I did, but I just can't, right? We've taken on NFL. It's more of a kind of a management and planning job now. And so I'm sorry I've given you short shrift or been stressed whenever you've popped in. Look, like live TV can be quite stressful, right? Especially when you're not very talented producer, you make it more difficult than it is. You just gotta get back to tell the story, make it look pretty, right? And I guess I think the secret is to just have the right people and the right structure and let them do their jobs, right? It's like anything in life, really. There are loads of challenges. I guess anything can happen when you're live on air, right? You got to be prepared to adapt for that. You start off by worrying about the weather and off airs, and then eventually it morphs into like, what are the challenges? Like remote production has been a big change in thinking, right? It used to be that you'd have trucks on site and every camera and every bit of equipment would be cabled back into a television compound. It would all be cut and mixed together on site, sent up via satellite and sent out, right? And what you then had was a very, very stable working environment where almost everything worked all the time perfectly. And then you get into a scenario where everything isn't cabled and back to a compound, right? All those feeds, and a big match will have more than 200 audio, visual, and data feeds that now get fed back direct to Sky individually, right? So it doesn't all get mixed on site. It all comes back to gallery here where I'm talking to you now at Australia in West London, right? And it just means that the connectivity between, I don't know, say Edgbaston and here has got to be razor strong, right? And connectivity isn't as reliable as a cabled camera or whatever. And so you're reliant on that connectivity for everything to work. And in the early stages of remote, it didn't work as reliably as we would like. And so that's been a huge challenge, is the team adapting and accepting that things aren't as perfect as they were in the past, but we do it for efficiency reasons. We do it for sustainability reasons. There's no going back, right? You know, all the infrastructure's built. It will get easier and it will get better. And, you know, we've had some dicey moments over the last few years where we haven't had graphics, or that camera's not been working, or that microphone's not been working. And for a team that's, you know, used to the highest setting, the highest possible standards, occasionally that can be quite frustrating and quite difficult. But, you know, we've had a good few months now of really quality delivery of audio and vision and data. And so things are settling down. And, you know, a lot of that is down to the work of couple of people I'm going to shout out: Bridget Bremner and Liz Thorne, two amazing women, right, that work in cricket, who are responsible for this sort of technical delivery, and they've done an amazing job, and we're hugely indebted to them and their teams and colleagues, you know, for all the kind of the tech work that I pretend to know about but don't really understand.
Though you work on NFL as well, and I was just going to incorporate two questions into one, really. One regarding the future of cricket coverage and what it can learn from other sports.
Good question. Yeah, we took on NFL. We got less cricket in the winter, so it was almost like kind of like a seasonality thing, right? NFL starts, well, next week actually, and you know, the cricket season blends into the NFL season, which then kind of blends into prep stroke IPL, and it just means that, you know, we've got people working all the year round. So it's a slightly odd marriage. I love both sports, so I'm really, obviously, you know, really incredibly lucky. I think what I've noticed recently is that there's a trend towards the big event, right, in any sport, right? So whether that's a World Cup or a big series, or, you know, a Super Bowl, or, you know, the Masters or the Olympics, there just seems to be a trend away from the week to week and the smaller, and, you know, like a bilateral one-day cricket would be a reasonable example, right? And that, you know, they are good events that you go to on the day. There's probably, you know, because of the volume of cricket, because of the schedule, I think the focus would be more on world events than on bilateral series leading up to world events. I think that's probably fair. And so more people going towards a big event, and then at those big events, it's probably more of a sort of sport and entertainment type mix, right? And the Super Bowl is the perfect example of that, right? It's arguably the biggest sporting event on the planet. I've been really fortunate enough to have been. It is elite sport, but it's also elite entertainment, right? Whether you've got Rihanna doing the halftime show, or what, you know, the experience on television is great. The experience in bowl is incredible, right? And I guess I think the cricket fan potentially doesn't quite get that elite experience as consistently as it should do, right? I've been to a lot of cricket grounds. Some of them are amazing. Some of them are not so amazing. You know, sometimes it can be expensive. Sometimes you're in a small plastic seat. You know, in England, you don't know whether you're going to get rained on, you're going to get burnt. There's nowhere to charge your phone. The connectivity, Wi-Fi isn't great. You might not get your 90 overs in the day. You might get the best day's cricket ever, like, you know, as we've sort of seen under baseball of late. You just kind of don't know what you're going to get. But like in the modern world, like the big screens now aren't really big screens. The PA systems aren't that good. It can be expensive. You know, some of the tickets for, you know, the high-end events, especially in London, are, you know, are really, really expensive. And it's a shame, I think, that some people are excluded economically, right, from, you know, the purest form of the game, the format I love the most, despite all my canvassing for the 100 and support of the 100. I Test cricket remains my favorite format. And I think we can learn from treating the paying punter better. I think they get shortchanged in the ground. And I think we can learn from making the experience, especially on things like the 100, like better. And the American model is there, right? I was very fortunate to be able to go and see the Golden State Warriors on a visit to San Francisco earlier this year. I took my 9-year-old son, and, you know, we were just blown away by the, you know, the quality of screens, the quality of audio, and any kind of quiet moment when they're on a timeout or in between a quarter or whatever, right? They just fill those gaps so well. So I think cricket can really learn from that. I think Formula One would be another kind of, you know, barnstorming success story over the last decade. And again, going back, tell the story, make it look pretty. Well, I tell you what, Formula One does that perfectly, right? The drive, everybody's invested in it, right? Whether it's Drive to Survive, or it's the drivers, or it's the rows between teams, or it's, you know, they make a story out of who finishes 16th or 17th, right? In a race of 20 cars, right? They make a story over who finishes top 10. They're just really, really good at that. And they're really, really good at, you know, getting the right content on the right platform. And it's just brilliant storytelling. Boxing is another sport, right? Pay-per-view boxing, right? You know, you ask the fighters, right, to try to promote their fight, that they're going to get a cut of the earnings, right? They do a brilliant job. They'll do almost anything to promote that fight. You know, whereas sometimes, you know, even on the 100, right? Can we get an interview with whatever tomorrow? No, maybe, we'll see. It's just like, you know, cricket's got to do a better job of promoting itself and selling itself, I think.
Finally, Hendo, I think we've got about 3 minutes left on the
All
recording.
right, okay.
The PSL, tell us a little bit about some of the T20 leagues coverage. I know the PSL is a deal that the Sky have got at the moment. Do you see that continuing on Sky?
Well, we'd like to. I can't obviously get involved in any commercial conversations publicly. Look, these T20 leagues are not going away. If I'm honest, I'm not sure that they have so much cut through overseas. PSL is massive in Pakistan. IPL is massive in India, but no better example. SA20 is massive in South Africa. And look, it's good and interesting content, and it does, you know, reasonable kind of viewing and numbers on Sky. The 100 is kind of pretty big here, right? But does it have any cut through in South Africa and India and like in Pakistan? So I think you know, yeah, I mean, you know, we like the PSL. There was an unfortunate clash last year with IPL. There was some good reasons for that I can't remember. It was maybe to do with the T20 World Cup stadium redevelopment. I can't remember, right? But yeah, look, you know, like you know, you've sort of got your major leagues window now throughout the year from you know, you kind of got Big Bash, and then you got Middle East, you got South Africa, you got Pakistan, India, England, Caribbean, you know, like, and then there's obviously loads of other leagues popping up here, there, and everywhere. PSL is an important competition. We've got loads of Pakistani viewers and, you know, cricket fanatics at Sky that enjoy watching it. And I know, you know, Nick Knight and Mark Butcher and others, Nasser have been out and enjoyed broadcasting it. The standard is high on the field, and yeah, hopefully we'll keep showing it for a bit to come.
And many thanks for your time. Really insightful and interesting interview, and wish you all the best, and keep in touch.
My pleasure. Nice to chat. Take care.